Hello YouTube, this is Joseph bringing you another deck tech. Today I'm bringing you Leovold, Emissary of Trest. He is my newest commander deck and I'm really excited to play him. He's very powerful, very fun. He's in the colors black, green, and blue. His ability is that each opponent cannot draw more than one card during their turn, and if any of my permanents become targets of a spell or ability my opponents control, I may draw a card. So the whole purpose of this deck is just generating lots of card advantage. So let's get started. So I separated all my cards into kind of categories. The first batch here is my mana accelerants. So Burgeoneering and Exploration just let me play numerous land on a turn, and Maya Dryad and Wood Elves both let me search my library for any forest, so I can search out my shocklands. Deathrite Shaman can both ramp you and also ping your opponents for life, and just exile cards from graveyards. So it's very good against any animator and graveyard strategy. And Bloom Tender is really good with Leovold, because he's 3 casting cost commander. In the same way Bloom Tender was very powerful in Janara, she's just as powerful in Emissary of Trest. So those are my accelerants. These are the 5 tutors that I'm running in the deck. Mystical Tutor, Demonic Tutor, and Fabricate are all just, they all search out different things. Mystical Tutor searches out instants or sorceries that I need. Demonic Tutor can search out any card, and Fabricate is for artifacts. The main card that I'll be looking for in most games is Allurin, which is an enchantment that lets you play any creature spell with converted mana cost 3 or less at instant speed from your hand. It's a global effect that helps out all players, but that is one of my main win conditions, so I'm almost always going to be searching for that card. And Fabricate is there to look out Cloudstone Curio, because that's another significant part to the combo in which I want to win. And then Beseech the Queen is just an extra, more budget version of Demonic Tutor. And the Wealth is there as kind of a Genesis wave on your opponent's library. It's just a good way to dump a lot of your land and extra mana that you've produced in the late game as an alternative win condition. So I'm really excited that I get to run 3 of my favorite cards, Rhystic Study, Phyrexian Arena, and Rites of Flourishing. They are by far some of the best card draw spells in their colors. And the special note here is Anvil of Bulgarian is very powerful with Leovold out, because your opponents can only draw 1 card during their upkeep. And Anvil of Bulgarian forces your opponents to also discard a card every turn. So instead of drawing an additional card like they would be, they're always drawing 1 card and discarding a card every turn, which essentially locks out their card draw step altogether if they have no cards left in their hand, and in many ways gives us all the card advantage and taxes our opponent quite significantly. No Leovold deck would be complete without a few wheel effects, so I'm running Days Undoing, Jace's Archivist, Teferi's Puzzle Box, and Time Reversal. You'll note that all of these shuffle your hand back into your library opposed to discarding your hand, and that's very intentional, so you won't see Dark Deal, Windfall, or Wheel and Deal in this deck. And more importantly, I don't want to rely on wheel effects to win the game. They are very oppressive with Leovold out, and this is more of a secondary alternative win condition or a way to get back into the game if I'm super far behind. So these are just more for insurance and not really what I want to be doing with the deck all the time. So, and I'm also wanting to use these when my hand size is depleted. One purpose for making this commander, Leovold my commander, is so that I can be playing more spells per turn than my opponent is, and that I can be refilling my hand a lot easier than my opponent will be. So this whole deck is looking to just win through the attrition of card advantage. So these are my cantrips in terms of creatures. These are cards that will I'll be able to repeat a few times throughout the course of the game. Baleful Strix and Coiling Oracle will always draw me a card, or at least advance my board position. Cadaver Imp and Eternal Witness return things from my graveyard to my hand. Edric, Spymaster of Trest. Of course, if you're running Leovold, you may as well run his cousin or brother or whoever he is. They're closely related, so you gotta run both of them. And Dustmantle Seer is an alternative win condition. The highest casting cost card in my deck is 5, but most of the deck is 3 or less. I think it counted like 50 cards or converted mana cost 3 or less. So most of the time I'm going to be losing 1 or 2 life to draw an additional card, maybe 3, but my opponents will almost always be losing like more than that on a typical turn. So he's kind of a way to just burn my opponents out in the late game, and he's a 4/4 with flying for 4, which is quite reasonable. So these 4 cards are my 4 main win conditions. Corrupted Conscience is the one card I may switch out, but it's there just to steal my opponent's biggest and strongest creature and then just win through infect damage. Allurn is going to be the one that I'm going to be searching for most of the time. It allows me to play all my creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less at instant speed on anyone's turn, and as many of them as I want. There are a few combos I have with Cloudstone Curio, so that's kind of my win condition combo. And then Ley Line of Anticipation allows me to play creatures at instant speed as well. And then Rite of Replication is just to bombard my opponents with their biggest, baddest creature, or copying and kicking it to cast some of my Enter the Battlefield creatures and just win through some means that way. But these are my win conditions. These are the protection spells. These are the spells that are just looking to keep me alive and thwart my opponent's plans. So Lightning Greaves is a given. Spellskite is really good with Leovold because it says if any opponent targets one of my permanents, I can draw a card and I can force them to target Spellskite, and it just lets me save Leovold and get a lot more card advantage. It's a very good card. And Cure of the Glass Spinner is another great one because all my creatures have to be targeted twice to be removed, so if my opponent is casting something that would target my creature, they would have to cast 2 spells, and that means I would be drawing 2 cards and just getting so much card advantage out of that. Arcane Denial, again, counter spell, I can draw a card and then my opponent draws a card, but you know what, they can't because they can only draw 1 card a turn. Then Counterspell, Dissipate, and Void Shatter are just staples for blue. Misdirection is another one because I can often cast it for free to redirect a spell. Desertion is another kind of win condition. I consider it to be very similar to Control Magic, except for it's at instant speed. And then Evacuation is just as my single board wipe. But again, with this deck I want to return cards to my opponent's hand, because if I do play a wheel effect, I can just wheel their hand away and get rid of the problem completely. So I counted and I have a total of about 20 spot removal in the deck, but these are all my instant and sorcery related ones. So I have Nature's Claim just to get rid of an artifact or enchantment, Cyclonic Rift just to wipe the board or get rid of a problem permanent when I need to. Curse the Swine and Ashes to Ashes are sorcery speed, unfortunately, but they can exile creatures and get around a lot of indestructible gods or Avacyn Angel of Hope or other problematic cards, so they're very essential for the deck. And then I have Beast Within, Crows and Grip, and Putrefy, which I just think are staples for any green-black deck. So those are my instant and sorcery spot removal. So these are some of these creature-based spot removal. They're looking to just get rid of your opponent's creatures. Bone Shredder, Merciless Executor, Fleshbag Marauder, and Big Game Hunter all just get rid of your opponent's creatures, and Lifebane, Zombie, and Liliana Scepter can just make your opponents discard cards and exile problematic white or green cards in your opponent's hands. So the best one in this batch is obviously Gilded Drake. I'm just wanting to steal my opponent's stuff and then find ways to kill Gilded Drake or return it to my hand and then be able to recast it numerous times. Corruptor, Shaman, and Reclamation Sage are there for artifact removal. God of the Sea, I just have it for the scrying ability, making my stuff unblockable just to ping through for some damage. And Managorja Hydra is very good in this deck because I'm playing lots of spells each turn, and chances are my opponents are as well, so it will get really big really quickly. Parasitic Strix is there to combo off with the Cavern Harpy because Cavern Harpy can pay 1 life, returning itself to your hand, and then you can recast it with, if you have Cloudstone Curio and a Learn on the field, to get infinite triggers of Parasitic Strix and just win through burn damage essentially. And then the Cut Purse is just there to get rid of your opponent's permanents. Unfortunately, they have to pay a mana, but again, if you have Cloudstone Curio and a Learn, you can often cast this card like infinite amount of times in a turn, and eventually your opponents can't pay that casting taxing cost, and they just lose all their permanents and you win the game. My battery's about to die, so I'm going to briefly go over some of the more unique lands, I guess. These are more my utility, or lands that tap for any color. So we have Command Tower, Reflecting Pool, and City of Brass for just fixing your mana. Bojuka Bog is really good because we are making our opponents often discard cards or different things, and just being able to exile the library, their graveyard is very handy. Temple of False God is a staple just to mana ramp. Arcane Lighthouse is good to get around hexproof creatures. Reliquary Tower, we're going to be drawing a lot of cards, so we may as well have no maximum hand size. Reach Sanctitarium is a new land that came out in one of the newer sets, and it just allows every player to draw a card and then discard a card. And again, our opponents can only draw 1 card a turn, so it kind of is like Anvil of Bulgarian in a way, so it's very powerful. And then Heart of Progress just makes our creatures a little more stronger when they come into the battlefield. Well, thanks for watching this YouTube video. I really appreciate it. Leave comments in the section below. I would love to hear your feedback. What have you done with Leovold if you're building a deck with him? And I would love new subscribers, and click that like button. It helps people find the channel. Yeah, and have a good day.